You are now listening to the Serious Growth Podcast with your host, Leo Costa Jr.
Welcome to Serious Growth Podcast, otherwise known as my time to have my meltdown. It's a nightmare sometimes. I'm really fighting to be positive in these podcasts, although it might scare some people off. I think they know that by nature, it's not by nature, it's just by training. I'm a hard-nosed dude, and I've gotten to the point where I'm zero tolerance, like my buddy Vince. Oh, by the way, Vince Gironda, happy birthday to you, my friend. 104 years old. If you were here today, I guess it doesn't really change that fact. You're 104 years old, just not in the flesh. You're definitely in my head, I'm sure, because of your impact in the industry. You're in a lot of people's heads. So anyway, 104 years of age, man. I'm really glad I got to know you. I learned a lot from you, a ton. I really learned like the environment to be in, the proper training environment. I think was at Vince's gym. There's no doubt about it. It was a dungeon. It automatically put you into the right kind of mindset. No music. Who the hell wants to be around that? You know who? Serious growthers, the people that are serious about their training. They don't need no damn music. I didn't. What was that?
You.
Oh. Okay, start over. Start over. I'm going to shut my phone off. Oh, I have to do it this way.
Are you sure you got this?
I do.
Okay.
Why did it sound like I didn't?
It sounds like you're.
No, I'm a professional.
Okay.
I have to shut my shit phone off. Okay, here we go. Welcome to Serious Growth Podcast. Should I not start there?
Oh God.
I think I'm getting light blindness.
No, you were good. I was trying.
Oh, okay, ready?
Jesus.
You're welcome. Keep Jesus out of my podcast. You ready? Welcome to Serious Growth Podcast, where the truth be known and the truth be told, whether you like it or not. By the way, Kara, I'm in a very good mood today. And I think you know that I shouldn't be, based on this podcast. This is like the third time being the charm. My goodness. You know, what I like about this podcast is it gives me a platform to melt down, to have my moment of being my inner Vince Gironda. By the way, it's Vince's 104th birthday today. If he was around, I'd tell him. I'm telling him anyway. That's how much he's into my head. He's rented space in my mind for years. That guy was smart, fucking genius. You know, I'm trying not to cuss as much as I normally do. I hate that shit, you know, because it sounds like hell. I'm trying to clean up my act. Anyway, Vince, happy birthday. Vince's place was amazing. I mean, you talk about serious. He was serious growthing before serious growth was, before we came up with it. His gym was like this dungeon, low ceiling. For those of you who have trained in it, not many did, but there were some big names that trained at Vince's gym. Arnold trained there. I think Larry Scott trained there. The guys that were real serious came to Vince's gym. And this is before, well, Wiener was actually in business. And Vince was so anti that hype. He was all about it was all about the training. And that's kind of what I really loved about Vince. And that's what serious growth is all about. It's all about that, 100% that. And so that's why Vince, in part, he was always pissed off and angry because he call it that, people would come to him, Arnold's of the world, those guys, they come over to him to get the real training, and then he'd ship them over the hill, he would call it, and they go get marketed by the Weeder boys. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because Weeder gave an opportunity for a handful of guys to make out pretty good. It's unfortunate that industry is so I don't know, it's more cult like, and as far as making a living at it, it's very difficult for too many guys to do that. And when I say that, I mean as far as just making a living just by competing, you have to do a hell of a lot more than just compete. By the time you compete and the expenses that go into that with food and the things that you need to do to get up on stage, you don't make any money. The top maybe one or two guys that win, like the Arnold or, the Olympia, maybe they come out on top a little bit. Of course, you make it from the endorsements. That's in a lot of industry. The guys actually that are in different industries like golf or whatever, they may actually make probably more off their endorsements. To some degree, that was the same thing with bodybuilding. But you have to give credit where credit is due. Weeder brought more money to the competitions. Arnold did too. So I think they did their best to try to make a better opportunity for these guys. So anyway, Vince, rest in peace if that's what you choose. If not, just be who you were when you were alive. Mean and ornery, smart as hell. Okay, when I was coming through, as I was learning, because we all have to learn, the hard way in order to really learn stuff, I think. I don't think it's that you don't really learn at the core when you don't learn the hard way. The School of Hard Knocks. Might actually say that. These old guys knew shit. The School of Hard Knocks. I'm in that category now, Kara. Don't laugh. I'm in that category. I'm a 66-year-old man. Damn. How did I get here so fast? I don't want to be negative or anything, but as fast as I got to 66, if I'm just working off stats, I'm all about numbers. That. I'm all about numbers. The average age for males to before they kick it is about 78. I got to 66 like in a blink of an eye. Yeah. What about these next? What is that? That's 12 more years. If I'm lucky, done. I got to make this shit like productive. Every aspect of my life. I don't want to be negative, but there's more road behind me than there is ahead of me, unless I'm a real freak of nature. One of my goals right now is to redefine my age from this point forward. So you guys out there, stop fucking wasting your time.
All right, let's take a quick break so I can tell you about our product.
Do you want a bone-crushing grip? Good, because you're gonna get one with the amazing new TRS gripper. It's a progressive grip builder with longer handles and a special ergonomic design that's like a dozen hand grippers in one. Start off easy and work your way up to quickly build your grip strength from wet noodle to pulverizing. The package includes a video from the world-famous strength coach, Dr. Russ Horine, the man who worked with Leo Costa to help bring you big beyond belief in the Bulgarian Power Burst. Dr. Horine shows you a simple and easy to follow workout plan that takes just minutes a day right from in front of your TV set if you want. So click on the link below and let's get started building you a stronger, firmer, bone-crushing grip.
Make every move count. When I was coming up, everything was so black and white. I was certain as a young bodybuilder, even a young trainer, I was so certain about things. Like, what's the best way to put on muscle? It was this way. What's the best way to eat? It was this way. How much protein should you take in? It was this way. What I didn't know is what I didn't know. And the more time that I put into this thing, I will say that black and white, it's still there, but gray is where it's at. I went to a political event one time where all these politicians were there lying to us. And one of the things that they talked about was they said, there's black and there's white, but all business is done in the gray. That's how politicians work, in the gray. Well, there's some truth to that in bodybuilding and the way you assess what is the best way to put on muscle, add strength, what kind of protein intake that you should have. It's not absolute. And we're going to talk about absolute versus failure. That's a different animal that we're going to talk about. But it's not black and white as much as everything is really gray. I guess maybe if you look at it from a positive, I'm trying to be positive on this show today, is that that's a good thing, because that there really is more than one way to skin the physiology. I mean, we're so much the same because we're humans, but we're really kind of specifically different. And that's the reason why you can't do a one diet fits all. Same way with training. We've talked about it's a process. You learn that way, but it's all in the gray, and it's up to you to find out what that gray is for you. And it's going to take a boatload of time to find all that out. The next thing I would like to talk about is absolute failure versus momentary failure. I learned about absolute favor. I learned about absolute failure from a friend of mine named Milton. I'm going to leave his last name out of this thing to protect him. Not that he needs it. He's a former cop, badass. But he's the one that got me into training because I knew nothing. I mean, he hadn't seen me for 20 years. And the first thing he says to me, "What the hell happened to you?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" Well, I was in the worst shape of my life at 27. Milton said, "You need to get into the gym, you fat ass." Harsh words. But he was right. Anyway, so I ended up training inside of a gym with Milton there for quite some time. And Milton was all about going to absolute failure. This guy's got a mindset. I mean, he embodies really what serious growth is to some degree, but he took it to another level. I mean, going to absolute failure every single time that you train, I'm going to tell you right now, it's not what you should do, not as a matter of general protocol, for a couple of reasons. One is that taking your body to that extreme, and again, bodybuilding is extreme by its own nature, but taking it to absolute failure each and every time is setting yourself up for injury. And the thing that you have to consider is maybe in short term, you're getting more result from going to absolute failure, but are you really, if you're hurt all the time? And I know Milt was hurt. Not that we don't get hurt in the sport. You're always fighting injury. There's no doubt about that. But just taking yourself to absolute failure is just not the way to go. You're gonna get hurt pretty severely. And my recommendation would always be take your body to momentary failure. What does that mean? That means that you still have a couple of reps left in the tank. It's okay to do that. You're not really shortchanging yourself, especially if you can keep yourself in the game, and meaning in the gym for longer. You're not shortchanging yourself. And what I would challenge you to do is, rather than go to absolute failure each and every time, I'm not saying that you can't go every once in a while, just test kind of where your absolute strength is, if you want to, just to test that. It's the difference between doing that once in a great while, maybe 1 to 5% of your training, as opposed to doing it every single time. I mean, you can see that, that doing it every single time will lead into overtraining. And even if your mindset is such that you don't pick up on the alerts that your body is telling you, your body will shut you down, because that's what it does. It's smart that way. It's trying to protect you, believe it or not. And you have to be willing to take heed of that. And I also know that when you get into that mindset, like Milton was in, even like what I was in, the guys that are real serious about their training, that we're walking a tightrope. It's like a double-edged sword. when you push your body to that, to that limit, even if it's momentary failure, you have to understand that you're pushing your body to a certain limit. And you got to be careful with that. It's tricky. And that's the reason why a lot of times we have partners that are working with us, because if you have a really good partner, they are there not only to motivate you to do that 1 or 2 more repetitions, but they also know and are there to advise you, to like, hey, shut it down, because sometimes when you're in that moment and when you're bodybuilding, I've gotten so much in the moment that I even feel my vision narrow. Like, it's crazy. Like, I don't see wide anymore. As I'm getting closer and closer to pushing that body to the limit, all of a sudden everything narrows down and I'm just like in this tunnel, almost like I'm having a out of body experience. I think the guys that are training, as like I'm suggesting, I think that's something that we all can relate to. And if you can't, I would say that you're probably not getting into the right zone, but you got to be careful when you get to that point. Momentary failure will keep you in the game. I know Milton had a lot of injuries from that. Shoulders are tore up pretty good. I mean, hell, we all do after that sport, but the key there is to try to keep yourself, in the game. So I'm saying to you right now, to be instructive is focus on quality. And I do know that as it relates to putting on muscle, there needs to be quantity. But those two things are so close together, almost like love and hate. You know what I mean, Carol? Love and hate. They're so close to each other. But it's true. The volume that you do, and so that's the quantity, and the quality of what you do, feeling everything that you train. Those two are just very close together, and yet they're far apart, because you'll find that most people that are in the gym, it's hard to multitask. And I think that's multitasking to a degree. Quantity, quality. That's very different. But I would say when you go into the gym, focus on this. Focus on first of all, it all starts in the mind. It all starts there, and your body, your physiology, well, your mind is part of your physiology, but your body will get the benefit and the result of what you're thinking about, your intention, your ability to be able to step inside that gym. And when you do that, the switch flips. There's a lot of, when you're inside of a gym, there's just a lot of distraction. There's music, there are people, there's noise, all that. You have to quiet that stuff down, even to the point where if you're really in the tunnel, in that zone, you don't even hear music. You don't hear anything. And that's the reason, some people, when they say turn the music, I mean, I do the same thing too. But when I'm really in that zone, I don't hear anything. I remember being in that zone when I was playing football, quarterback. I never heard the crowd. I mean, I did at times, but I didn't hear them. I was so focused on what I was doing. And that's what I'm trying to say to you, is focus on what you're doing. The minute you step inside that gym, it changes. You become something else for that 30 to 45 minutes. You become another person for that 30 to 45 minutes. I remember one of my mentors in football, as it related to competing on the field against somebody else who was vying for the same position. That's what he told me. His name was Bernie. The guy was smart. He said, once you step inside that line, there's no friends. The people those athletes that are, especially the ones that are trying to take your position away from you, because that's what you're doing. So there's no friends. And it's a hard thing to do, is to think that they're not your friends, because they are. I mean, you're playing with a team. But for that 30 to 45 minutes in the gym for that moment in time on the field. Nope. You're focusing on one thing, is to be number one at the position that you're in. When you go into the gym, think of it the same way. If you're a serious bodybuilder, okay, obviously this doesn't apply to the fat people that are out there. And I don't mean fat in like they're overweight. I mean the fuck around training that most people do in the gym. I don't mean those people. Okay, that's a different environment. That's something else. Like for me, you got to tune that shit out. It's irritating, especially when your goal is to create perfection aesthetically in every rep that you're doing. It's a nightmare. But those are all the things that you have to be willing to, you got to tune it out. And that's not the only thing. You got to, then you have to learn how to play with pain. When you're feeling everything that you're training, you're purposely taking your body into the pain zone. You're taking it into, you're walking into fire. Do you think that just happens? And yet I see so many people that they go through stretches where they're really into their training and they're into their diet and all that bullshit, and then they fall out. That's kind of the normal for most people. And I'm not saying that's not something that you have to do anyway. Even when you have really great intentions, it's not easy to go in 6-7 days a week and put yourself through torture and then deal with everyday life and all those obstacles that life brings. It's not easy. That's for damn sure. But it doesn't change the fact, because what we're talking about here is creating quality. But you have to start with your mind, and you have to realize that when you step inside, especially, it's all about that inside. Reps, rest, feel everything you train. Do it over again. Do it over again for 30 to 45 minutes. It never ends for the guys that are serious growthing, for the guys that are out there achieving at the extraordinary. It doesn't end. It doesn't even end. I'm talking about when you go in the gym, inside those lines. But to the bodybuilder, to that person, to that animal, it doesn't end, even outside that, because you're dealing with diet and all that kind of stuff. You're dealing with being hungry. Well, I tell you what, when you're hungry, fuck, that's a nightmare. I always struggled with that when I was at home. I could deal with it pretty good during the day. When I was hungry at home, I don't know how many trips I took to the fridge and just open it just to look and do the same thing every single time to me. Boy, you talk about a test. It doesn't get easier. It gets harder. But that's just the way it is. Focus on every minute being productive. Focus on not only quality of repetition that you're doing, but quantity, because you need to get a lot of volume, because we know that volume is the key to putting on muscle. If you're a strength athlete, low reps, get stronger, but focus on strengthening your mind every single time. Focus on quality. Focus on being, if you're bodybuilding, up tempo. The tempo is a part of that, what creates the temporary irritation to the physiology, and also, again, mind and body. You need to create havoc on that. You need to go to war with yourself when you go into the gym each and every single time. And then you have to be smart enough to pay attention to what your body's saying to you, because sometimes it tricks you. Sometimes you have like these two people that are on your shoulder. One is saying do more reps, or do two more reps, and one is saying don't. It's tricky. Got a lot of things going on there at one time, and you got to pay attention to that. That in itself is a part of everything that happens, and when you come out the other side of that, after all the time that you put into the gym, I have a decal that's in my gym that really says it all, is that results are a reflection of the struggle. All you have to do is walk into a gym and you can see who has struggled. Forget about the guys. Look, there's, in the sport of bodybuilding, there's a boatload of drug use. We know that. Forget about that. Okay. Does it help? Yes. But take the drugs away from the guys that are like the biggest or the strongest. If they were doing it all natural, those would still be the guys, I would say. Not every single one of them, but those would be the guys that would still be at the top. I know that happened years ago with what comes to mind, and this is just one example. Barry Bonds, when he hit all those home runs, and then of course you had McGuire, guys like that were just. But with Barry Bonds, it was very public in what he went through. And I'm not condoning the use of any kind of drug. I'm not, but I understand it, why it's in the industry. I don't condone it necessarily, but that's not the reason why those guys end up being successful. And so many times people use that as an excuse. It's like, that's the reason why I can't go to that or just any level, because people are always looking for damn excuses. Focus on your mind, focus on length of time, and know that it's a marathon. Stay in it, improve your quality and your quantity, and see what happens at the end of a stretch of 8 or 12 weeks. When you get to that point, just analyze, assess what you've done, make the adjustments, enjoy maybe the 1 or 2 day rest period that you take, and then get back in and start it all over again. And make sure that in that next 8 weeks or 12 weeks, when you spit yourself out the other end, make sure that you're better. You're going to war with yourself, not the guy that's next to you, yourself. That's all that really matters. Whether you're competing or not, you're going to war with yourself. Make yourself better at the end of the day, at the end of 12 weeks, at the end of 3 months. That's the stated goal. Until next time, for all you serious growthers and silverbackers, you guys, I'm loving the questions that you're sending in. Listen, one of the things that happened to me when I was in Bulgaria was they were all about collaborating, sharing. And the whole purpose of you guys writing in with your questions is for us all to share with each other for the purpose of getting better. Let's not hold back and, let's not take the stance where we don't want to share because we don't want somebody else to get better. That's bullshit. Let's share with each other. Let's answer questions. We're sharing experiences. And I've talked about this before. A lot of this and most of this is all about experiences that we each have. And then we bring them to a bigger table and talk about it and see if we can come out with something even better. Because in my mind, we can. Until next time, go get some serious growth.
Thanks for listening to the Serious Growth Podcast. For more episodes like the one you just listened to, subscribe to us on your mobile podcast app and leave us a review. If you'd like to reach out, you can find us online at seriousgrowth.com. Until next time, train smart and train hard.